Shabbat Shalom. And here we are. It's Friday night. So, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to tell you all the things coming up at our temple. Our regular events include Monday brings History of Anti-Semitism with Rabbi Falik online and montage in person. This Monday will be Cheryl Feit teaching Israeli folk dance. On future Mondays, look for game night, Shidokan Shorin Ryu Karate, demonstration by member and black belt Jessica Gardon-Rose, and more. Tuesdays, we have Socrates Cafe online and Maj in person. Look for Canasta to begin sometime soon. Yoga on Wednesdays and Fridays. Rabbi Falik has an ongoing class, Journeying Through the Torah, Saturday mornings online. Next Daytimers Lunch Bunch is next Wednesday, February 28th. Upcoming special events include Purim Movie Night, Friday, March 22nd, complete with red carpet, popcorn, and Hamantaschen. The movie is Home for Purim, written by Eugene Levy and Christopher Guest, so you know it's going to be funny. A didgeridoo sound bath on March 24th. If you're curious about that, ask me for details at the Oneg. Day of service, Sunday, April 14th. Congregational Seder, April 23rd. Spring fundraiser is May 18th. This will be family friendly. Put on your detective's hat and see if you can solve the mystery. More details forthcoming. Looking way ahead, mark your calendars for a Klez Fest, a full day of klezmer music here on September 15th. Make sure to check the newsletter each week for more information on these events and more.
No representative. Senator? No. Representative. State representative. Any other contributions from the peanut gallery? Now, the following week, there is a special announcement. The program has been changed. The following week, I have invited former congressional representative Andy Levin to come speak. Now, I'm going to explain to you why I've invited him. I've invited him because I have kept my mouth shut for a very long time about how I feel about the ceasefire and the calls for ceasefire, and Andy has a different position than mine. I will share with you my position in the pages of the commentary, of the virtual pages of the commentary of the newsletter at some time before, maybe this week, and I'll also present something after he speaks. But he is a person I felt I could trust to do this without saying the word genocide every third sentence. And I think he has a principled and pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian argument. And for that reason, I invited him to come, because as a humanistic congregation, I do want us to hear all sides. And then I will present what I've been relatively quiet about. Some of you know, because you can discern from my presentation last week, and you've also had private conversations with me, and I did not promise to keep my mouth shut during private conversations. And so you know that I've been upset with some of the response, and that I am not calling for an immediate Israeli unilateral ceasefire. I believe if there's to be a ceasefire, then the country that attacked Israel should cease their fire and surrender and release the hostages. But I'll share more about that another time. But I wanted you to know, please spread the word, because I would like Andy to have a nice crowd, and I think that what he says is important, and I respect him very, very much, and I'm extraordinarily appreciative. And now that I've practiced my introduction of him, I will mention only one other program. There's many great things in March. But we will have for the Holocaust Memorial Day, please add this to your very, very fast litany of things that are coming up. We're going to have for Holocaust Memorial Day, Yom HaShoah, this year, Joseph is putting together a piano trio, which you should know is, well, it features the word piano. It consists of a cello and a violinist.
Wait, about that.
No, no.
We have to talk.
Oh.
Yeah, we have to talk. I mean, for sure, piano solo.
Okay, we're going to have a great concert. We're going to have a serious and meaningful concert that Joseph is putting together by himself and or others to remember the...
Watch the space.
The music of, I'm glad I said something, or not, to remember the music of those who suffered during the Holocaust. And
yeah, there's
some
composers who actually were in concentration camps and wrote music
While there, yes.
And also, there's another composer who actually escaped the Holocaust, and instead of escaping west, he went east, but more on that later.
So whatever it is, you know, if it's musical, Joseph is going to make it beautiful and meaningful and honor the memories of our fallen during the Holocaust, and hopefully bring back their voice, their musical voice, to us. So I think that's an appropriate way for us to observe that date, and you can check the calendar. You'll be seeing it soon. All right, tonight we're going to hear from Joel Brown. I don't see Joel in the room, but he must be nearby, so I saw him walk in. Okay, good. And we're going to have for our service tonight, the readers are Lonnie Fleischer, Esther Ingber, Howard Liederman, Beth and Natan Fuchs, Melanie Goldberg, and Janice Youngs. And those on YouTube, you probably can't see, we have a relatively small crowd tonight, but we do want to encourage people to read. I know you all had to sit and read in elementary school with your books open. If you're uncomfortable with it, of course, you know, we don't want you to do it. But if you are at all comfortable, we'd like to get some more folks involved in our service. Yes? And we have a sign-up sheet. And also for greeters, in case, you know, mostly it's our board that does it, but we'd love for our members who come on a regular basis. And those of you on YouTube, you can't see it, but that's who's here. Let's begin our service. Arthur, if you will. In just 1 second. Yes, I will call you up, as I always do. With the onset of this Shabbat, we commit ourselves to nurture the plants and animals, the elements, the womb of sea and soil. We offer ourselves our ability to create, our potential to stimulate the innovative energies of others and of ourselves for the benefit of all the world. An appropriate way to start a service committed to the environment. Let us contemplate the significance of life, pardon me, of the wonders of being human. May the human spirit open the paths of ingenuity, of healing and wonder, of contemplation, for Shabbat is here. Shabbat is here. Natan and Beth Fuchs, if you would please light our candles.
Shabbat shalom, y'all.
Shabbat shalom.
Y'all. To bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. Together, on this Shabbat, we join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. On this Shabbat, we join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the song of the stars. On this Shabbat, we join with the earth and with each other to recall our responsibilities, to renew our spirits, to reinvigorate our bodies. On this Shabbat, we join with the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember our children. On this Shabbat, we join with the earth and with each other. We join together with purpose that transcends all others, to heal the earth and preserve the life-giving environments on our planet.
Shoshani Netzela Apustan Mo Besamim Ulevona L'Ragalef Miftan Shah Beruach Shoshano Shva Shir Balad Zemer Ahava Laila Yored Le'ad Beruach Shoshano Shva Abel Chashlak Shir Balad Zemer Shel Ahava.
Shabbat Shalom. On the fifth day, the scientists who study the rivers were forbidden to speak or to study the rivers. The scientists who studied the air were told not to speak of the air, and the ones who worked for the farmers were silenced, and the ones who worked for the bees. Someone from deep in the Badlands began posting facts. The facts were told not to speak and were taken away. The facts surprised to be taken were silent. Now it was only the rivers that spoke of the rivers, and only the wind that spoke of its bees. While the unpausing factual buds of the fruit trees continued to move toward their fruit, the silence spoke loudly of silence, and the rivers kept speaking of rivers, of boulders and air. Bound to gravity, earless and tongueless, the untested rivers kept speaking. Bus drivers, shelf stockers, code writers, machinists, accountants, lab techs, cellists kept speaking. They spoke the fifth day of silence.
Ani ve'ata nashane et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata az yavo ukva kulam. Amru et ze kodem lefanai ze lo mashane. Ani ve'ata nashane et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata nase me'hachala. Yeh lanu ra'in davar ze lo nora. Amru et ze kodem lefanai ze lo mashane. Ani ve'ata nashane et ha'olam. Ani ve'ata nashane et ha'olam.
Loving life and its mystery with all my heart and all my spirit, with all my senses and all my strength, I take upon myself these promises to care for the earth and all who live in it, to pursue justice and peace, to love kindness and compassion. I will teach these to my children throughout the day, as I dwell in my home, as I go on my journey, from the time I rise up until I fall asleep.
my light is in me. Where is my hope? My hope is in me. Where is my strength? My strength is in me. And in you, and in you. Where is my strength? My strength is in me. And in you, and in you.
Excerpted from Our Purpose in Poetry or Earthrise by Amanda Gorman, Youth Poet Laureate of the United States.
Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not wait. So I tell you this, not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality, where despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marble, this little true marvel, to muster the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give the next generation the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth.
We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. So Earth, pale blue dot, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. Together we do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn, we carry the weight of the fate of this celestial body orbiting a star, and as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an earth rise.
In the Bible story of Job, the author imagined God asking him these questions. Where were you when the foundations of the earth were laid? Or when the seas were contained, or the clouds made to swaddle the earth? Where were you when the first morning dawned, or the rain first fell, or the hail came down? Can you set forth the lightning, or cleft the rock for the water to flow? These questions were meant to humble ancient people who were powerless to comprehend the ways of the world. Our age of ignorance has passed. The time will come when it will be our descendants who are asking the questions. Where were you while the skies were polluted and the oceans filled with trash? Or when the clouds swirled mercilessly over some lands and disappeared from others? Where were you while the oceans lifted, the ice caps melted, and species went extinct at record rates? Why did you fail to contain the damage, to reverse the climate's change, to restore the balance? The questions asked of Job were unfair. The same will not be said of the questions our children will ask of us.
Nase shalom ba'olam, nase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam ve'meru shalom. Nase shalom ba'olam, nase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam ve'meru shalom, shalom. Nase shalom ba'olam, nase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam ve'meru shalom. Nase shalom ba'olam, nase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam ve'meru shalom, shalom.
In this community, where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, our well wishes are extended to these members of our community and to their loved ones, to Nitzan Ben-Gal, Jim Walker, and Kate Ben-Ami. And if there's someone whom you're thinking about, please feel free to share. Anybody on this side? Esther?
Steve Raphael and Ken Hall.
Melanie?
Julie Sedek and Corinna Snyder.
Anybody on this side over here? Anybody else? May all who suffer know that they are not alone, and may they be healed quickly. May they experience a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, the renewal of their bodies, and the renewal of their spirits. At darker times in Jewish history, there were moments such as this one during Jewish services when prayers were offered for those held hostage. To redeem captives, pidyon shvuyim, was an essential mitzvah. Sadly, we once again find ourselves in such a reality. In the spirit of our ancestors who lived through those terrible days, we voice these fervent hopes. May those taken captive find the courage to carry on. May those who love them not despair of their return. May they soon emerge from their confinement, whole in body and in spirit, to know once again the embrace of loved ones.
Makom ha'koach betocheinu, mekorot ha'bracha michavrotenu. May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us
Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Shalom. Mekomakoak betokeinu, mekorot habracha michavroteinu. May those in need of healing know refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. In memoriam, there are stars whose radiance reaches the earth only when they themselves are extinguished and are no more. There are people, the splendor of whose remembrance lights the world, while they are no longer among us. These lights, those that brightly shine in the darkness of the night, they illuminate for us the way.
Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season and years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight we observe the yahrzeits of Irma Berg Allweiss, Michael Berman, Annette Borovitz, Samuel Foreman, Esther Jacobi, Rebecca Kravitz, Max Luria, Mary Shane Lanker Maloney, and Abraham Young. As we did earlier for those who are ill, if there's someone who you'd like to remember now at this time, Joel.
Samuel Sidney Beaver.
Anybody else on this side? Over here? We say, Yehi Zichram Livracha. May their memories be a blessing, by which we express our hope that as we remember them, we will experience a moment of comfort, a moment when we remember the times that they once stood by us and do no more. If you can rise comfortably, please join me as together we recite our humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. Nit gadal v'nit kadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us each, in our own way, take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May justice and peace permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. Please be seated. I made that special welcome sign for you there. Andrea likes it. Well, I'm not going to give a long introduction of our longtime congregant and friend, Joel Brown, but I'm going to tell you the part that relates to why he's here tonight. He is, and probably you didn't know this, I didn't until recently, a member of the Climate Reality, I just love that, the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, personally trained in part by former U.S. Vice President Al Gore, who of course received a Nobel Peace Prize for this very topic back in 2007. Joel has also been trained and certified by this Climate Reality Project, an international nonprofit organization where he received a deeper understanding of the science of climate change and the impacts and solutions to the climate crisis nationally and globally. He will share what he has learned tonight about how we can better support solution action. So please join me in welcoming our friend Joel. And afterwards, if there's time for questions or you want to entertain them, we're going to have you guys come to that microphone there. I always forget to announce it, so I'm doing it at the beginning. And that water is for you, Joel.
Great. Is this someone else's, or is this for me, that glass? Isn't that sweet? Honest to God. All right. You know, I don't think in my entire life I'm ever going to be in front of a less hostile crowd. You know, it just strikes me. We are so fortunate. We are a rare breed. Humanistic and Jewish, we honor the idea of facing reality. That's not easy for most human beings to do, not even for us. But we try to do our best. We focus on that. And some of our values that are so beautifully reflected here is choosing life, Vador Lador, generation to generation, and acting together to make the world a better place. That is, you know, so interesting. I am struck because this is not a usual service, but it kind of captures a lot of our values. So I want to talk about this subject, which is, for the 21st and 22nd century, the story, the most important story. It is a critical one. Arthur, could we get a slide up there? So I picked up the pale blue dot, and the reason I did that is, in the spirit of humanistic Judaism, there is no one coming to our rescue. And from here on Earth to the closest other star, or two stars, it would take us 3,000 years to travel there if we doubled the speed of our fastest rocket at this point in time. So it's really 6,000 years, but I'm cutting it down because when someone's reading this, they're going to say, hey, it's too long. We can do it shorter. So no, 3,000 years. So realistically, as Carl Sagan said, who basically is responsible for that being taken, this is where we make our stand. So, I would like to start off with a short story. The story is one we may have heard. It's the frog in the pan. The frog is in a pan taken from the pond. He's on the stove, and very much in line with this issue, the temperature is slowly raised until, well, it starts getting very hot, but the frog doesn't move. We don't know why it doesn't know. It could be his perception, it could be he's frightened, I don't know, but he doesn't move. Finally, it gets so hot, just before it starts to boil, he decides to get out of the water. But his resilience is wasted. His time is wasted, his resilience is wasted, and he can't get out. And the frog perishes in the tail. So, we're going to be talking about man in the pan, but not in a pan, in a world of trouble. And I want to start out, you know, man is a lot more smart than a frog. He's got foresight, he's got hindsight, he's got insight, and he still struggles. So I want to start with hindsight and look from this point at what we've already lost. We're not going to worry so much what dangers and what we're going to lose in the future. Let's look at what we've lost. And the two things I want to focus on are biodiversity. Arthur, please. On biodiversity and time. I just want to, the other thing, the reason I have this slide is to say, on that photo you can see traces of the earth, the ocean, and the atmosphere. And those are the three main components of ecology. And they look at each of those individually, the land, the oceans and the waters, and the atmosphere. They all have their own system. However, they interact and affect each other. And all together, as we see here, they make up a unitary thing. That's a whole other system. And that's the system that is getting polluted and affected by carbon emissions. And it's affecting that and causing us to have a danger to our habitat. So, Arthur, please. Okay. One of the things in biodiversity that we've lost is trees. You know, from 1900 going back to 10,000 years before, the Earth has lost 17% of its trees. In the last 100 years, we lost 17% more of our trees. Now that's a shocker. So though we were loaded with trees, we now have lost 1/3 of our trees, 34%. And that means a significant portion of what converts carbon dioxide into oxygen that we breathe, the lungs of the earth, so to speak, have been removed. So that's number one. The reason I want to talk about biodiversity is something is going on. Anybody who's claiming hoax, we want to make sure that that's proven dead wrong. Now, in terms of the entire world of biology and botany, all the species taken, the statistics are that in the last 75 to 100 years, we have lost 20% to 25%, depending on which expert you're talking to, of all life. It's a massive loss of life. And there's a group of scientists, and many, who are concerned about having the 6th great extinction in the history of the globe. You may have heard of it. But this is the beginning, and it's something that is hair-raising to think about. There's 25% birds. Of course, bees and flowers are greatly reduced, so pollination is greatly reduced. We're totally dependent on that for food, for plants, it's a critical piece. Since 1950, 75 years, we've lost 1/3 of all the coral reefs, which every coral reef is an environment unto itself. You know, it's alive itself, and then it has a whole environment of other fish, et cetera, in there. And one that I want to say, I'm going to shorten this up because I don't want to go too long. In the ocean, they have discovered since 1950, 400 ocean dead zones. Have you ever heard this? 400 dead zones. What's a dead zone? There's no life, there's no oxygen, it's absolutely empty. There's a trace of oxygen, but I'm saying virtually dead. How big are these 400 zones? The average size is the state of Connecticut. This is not a small zone. State of Connecticut. The Gulf of Mexico is pretty much a dead zone. That's massive. It's a lot more than Connecticut. So they have some that are twice that size. They have some that are small. I'm giving you the average of the state of Connecticut. So what I'm saying is something horrible is happening. And I want you to be aware of it. Okay. Pollution. That's the other thing I want to mention. There's a massive amount, since I was a kid, since all of us were kids, pollution has been a major problem. Everybody recognizes the dangers of pollution. Do you know that 14 million people die every year from pollution, according to the scientists and the health experts? In the globe, 14 million people. Now look, we just had a pandemic. We have 3,500 people who die in 9/11. 14 million people. It's just a stunning figure, and we ignore it, and we keep treating the planet like a sewer. And that mentality, that neglect, that lack of relationship that people have not with the planet is an amazing thing, and a lacking, and creates a lot of conflict for getting action done. There are a lot of people who are very self-absorbed. They don't care about any other generation. They don't care about the health of the planet. Just want to be rich and have a great life. And you know, we understand it. That's a human foible. But we propose a balance. Yes, we have to do the day-to-day stuff to make a living, want to be successful, and all the rest. But we also want to have a relationship that's not a state of domination. It's not a winning, because when you come to the environment, you're not in control. You think you're in control. That's just a narcissistic illusion. When it comes to this ecology, this is about nature and life. You're a part of it. You're not on top of it. It's different from the agency that we can have in our day-to-day living here on level 1. But in this level, you're just a part of the greater whole. So nature is life. It's the evolution of mind. It's been evolving for 4.5 billion years, or 4 billion years. We're its children, any way you want to look at it. It may not be conscious of us, but it has at least the elements of mind in organic life that our mind evolves from. So one other thing I want to say that we've lost, and that is, could I get a next move here? Okay, one more, please. Yeah, conflict in time. Time is subtle, isn't it? I mean, you can go a lifetime and all of a sudden you realize you're older. I mean, it just is something that's remarkable. But here's the thing I want to talk about. We've lost 30, 35, 40 years knowing about this science. We had, when Al Gore was a House of Representative in the 70s, when he was a senator in the 80s, when he was vice president in the 90s, he already was into this, and he brought in Sagan and all the experts. They all testified to Congress. And every congressman knew about this issue. All the presidents that have ever come in since that time, back in Clinton's time, certainly, learned about this crisis, learned about this issue. Now, most of them were warning about climate change coming. But still, in 1997, they had an international world meeting, the Kyoto meeting, and they created an agreement on what was it? About greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, and global warming. So they've known about this. Every country, all the leadership has known about this. No action. They set up a 5% deal where we're going to do 5% in 7 years. Let's come back. We'll do it again. Unsuccessful. One problem was that we were in it a few years, and George Bush withdrew it. Texas, big oil, okay, understand. Then in 1995, we started something called the Conference of Parties. Representation, every country. First COP1 wasn't fully, but everybody after that, pretty much every country was in it. And their whole objective was greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, global warming. That was their main piece. And since then, we've had 28 COPs. It took them 21 years to get to 2015. We finally got an agreement to do something. So, all right, we lost 21 years. 21 years to actually get the political agreement, the doing. Now, this was a pledges. It was a pledge to take action. They weren't legally bound to take action. They were on kind of best efforts. Everybody set up a target, though, and as it turned out, as of today, every single one of them is behind their targets, except for France, who has 50% nuclear, and a few other countries. Outside of that, every one of the countries is far behind its targets, which were 50% conversion to renewables, non-carbon energy, by 2030. Now, the big thing that happened that changed thinking and got us to the Paris is very important. You see, under events, this is what happened. In 2000 to 2012, there was a huge change, acceleration in climate deterioration, in extreme weather. To give example, in 2003, there was a European mega heat wave. 70,000 people died. In 2010, there was a Russian heat wave. 56,000 people died from the heat wave. Now, we know 2,000 here, 3,000 there, that's becoming more common, but those numbers are stunning. Those were all-time records. But here's the interesting thing. In 2004, do you remember the tsunami in Indonesia? Yeah. 200,000 people died in ocean flooding that was caused not by greenhouse emissions, but by the earthquakes. But that experience of what the ocean demonstrated in terms of its power psychologically scared the hell out of everybody. So those three things from 2000 to 2012, and storms were 3, 4, or 5 times worse than they'd ever been, and the numbers of them and the cost of them and all this type of thing was massive in many, many areas of weather. So everybody got scared, so we wound up getting some serious agreements. So the only thing that really happened in the United States, you realize that after 2015, 2016, who came into power? The Republicans, hoax, we're out. So here's one of the 2 largest emitters of carbon in history and in the world, United States and China. United States has far more created more carbon emission than anybody else. Right now, the actual emissions per year is China about 30%. We're about 15% of the world, so 2 countries are doing 45% of the emissions for an 8 billion person world. The Chinese may be 30%, but per person, they're about a third of what our per person emissions are. You understand what I'm saying? So in other words, we have some responsibility here. And we have, at least we need to be leaders. But instead, we're out for 4 years, everybody leans back on the oars, and once again, it's a stop-go. That's why I call it a conflict in time. Now, even today, there is a real concern that if the Republicans come in, and listen, if they were for climate change, I love them. But no, they know. So here's anybody who's against climate change regulation or attention, education, I'm with them. But if you're against that, forget about it. I'm not giving you my vote. So here, in 2022, so wait a minute, 2022, capitalism finally created one great item. They passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which incidentally is the Climate Change Act, but they didn't want to use the word because it was too politically sensitive. And to get some votes from the other side, you got to take, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So in that act, we have $369 billion being compounded because of matching funds, private funds, et cetera. It's going to be close to $1 trillion of effect, even though it's the taxes are there. Okay. Arthur, please. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Paris Agreement now, but I do want to touch on net zero emissions, what this means. When we reform our energy and we stop producing excess emissions, that is, when carbon is emitted from the burning of fossil fuels, it breaks out into carbon and oxygen, and the carbon is absorbed in the ocean for the most. The other part is in land, and about 50% at this time is excess. Got no place to go. Where is it going? Up into the atmosphere. So every day, all the carbon that's emitted in the world, 50% of it is headed up. Some of it gets out into the space, and the rest gets stuck. And the funny thing is, once it's up there, it won't come down for 1,000 years. So as this accumulates, it gets worse and worse. So whatever level you stop this thing and it gets to net zero, as much as you make is equal to what is absorbed, that's net zero. So we might be able to do 10% of what we're emitting now and still be at net zero. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, that's important to say. Incidentally, climate change people do not mean to infer in any way, shape, or form that we're saying, let's stop using energy. We're not going to stop using fossil fuel energy. But the idea is to accelerate the manufacture of renewable energy to replace it. And that's going to take years. How many years is it going to take to do this in the world? We're going to talk about that. It's a long time. And so until that happens and we get to net zero, you can expect every year to be worse. And I'll show you why in just a couple of minutes. So, okay, next, Art, appreciate. So this is the atmosphere around the Earth. I want you to get a flavor of how thin that is. It's a very thin thing. Let's take a look at the next one now. See that far one with the airplane in it? That's the troposphere. The troposphere is the one closest to Earth, and that's where all the action is. We got to have troposphere. What it does is It maintains and conditions those things that allow life and liquid water to exist on Earth's surface. And it has in it, believe it or not, it's only 4 to 12 miles high. So 4 miles at the polar, 12 miles around the equator, 8 miles right here in Michigan. Now, let me ask you something. How long would it take us to walk 8 miles? Not that long. You could walk 8 miles. You could drive a car 8 miles and nothing, right? Going 45 miles an hour, go 12 minutes. So let me ask you something. How high is that? It isn't the breadth of the heavens that you think is so critical. That's where all the carbon is collecting in this low thing. So even though it's a fraction of 1%, it's what it does in there that's critical. And here's what it does. It forms something like, I'm going to give you a metaphor, a blanket. And when the sun comes through, it allows the sun to come through to the earth unaffected. So it heats the earth, but the inside of the blanket facing the earth, it acts as if it's a mirror, and it won't let it out. So the heat radiates down to the earth, normally would radiate out, but no, instead it goes back and it gets radiated right back in. So we're having a heating effect from these emissions of greenhouse gases. Huh? So if it's happening now, it's going to be an issue forever. That's the thing. Of course, if we get past 1,000 years, and that's only an estimate, could be a little less, could be 2,000 years. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows that. But it's going to be a very long time. What is happening? What happens with, what is fossil fuels? And how did it even get its name? Fossil fuels, which are coal, oil, gas, trees, are from plants and animals that lived millions of years ago. They're the remains of mostly plants and animals that got under the pressure and time turned into coal, oil, and gas. And so when they go and they dig out coal, that was once the remains of living plants. When you burn it, it gives you heat. And when you burn it, you get energy. So now, when you burn it, it releases carbon and oxygen. Well, where'd you get the name fossil fuels? Well, it's all those fossils that it came from, so they gave it the name fossil fuels. So fossil fuels, let's be honest, they've been using them since the 1800s, 1900s. It's made a pretty good life. We've got a whole world made up of this. Could we go to the next slide? Okay, I'm going to skip this for now. We may have to return, but we're going to move ahead. Here. So here's a picture of 13, 14 different sources of the burning, okay, that are emitting. So here are the main ones. There are coal mining, coal burning, maybe the worst of the bunch, right? The low-hanging fruit, as far as I'm concerned, for removal. There's fracking. There's thawing permafrost. Frozen areas melt. Out comes methane, another issue to talk about, and carbon dioxide. Air transport, oil production. There's land transport, forest burning, crop burning, nitrogen fertilizer, industrial agriculture, industrial processing, let's just start there. There are other things here. So it's not just the car you're driving. You don't have to pay $50,000 for a battery car. All this other stuff is emitting carbon every day. It isn't just the emissions from an automobile. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so this is coming from everywhere. Our whole society and culture is built around this. So it's a big job. It's a difficult job. It's a doable job. We're just in what I call phase one. When we got past 2012, we were entering phase one. If you had cancer, phase one of a process. Phase one is where you have a good chance of coming out of this alive and pretty good shape. If you get to work on it, you do the job. We're still in phase one. This is just the beginning, but it's very serious. So if you went to the doctor and you said, oh, Doc, how did it go? He says, well, I have some news for you. You have cancer, but we can treat it. We can do it. Here's what you have to do. Or do you do nothing? Do you wait till you get phase two to be sure things are really going to be that bad? Now you got a 50-50 chance at best. And for sure, as things get worse and worse, people are going to demand that this stop. We can't live like this. That's in the title of my speech. And that's what we ultimately have to get to. We have to get public action demanding the government to do what it has to do. That's when they'll take action. Right now, the political parties and their people who pay for their offices and lobbyists are basically controlling the vote. But there is the vulnerability that when the people really rise up and demand it, they'll do it. They won't even talk about climate change because they're afraid it'll create fear, that it'll create criticism, all this kind of stuff. So this is really still, after 35 years, a hot potato politically. So what's the effect of all this carbon emissions? Let's talk about it very briefly. We've got mega heat waves. We've got heat domes. We've got suffocating humidity. I'm talking about on the extreme sort now, not just the day-to-day weather. It's the extreme weather that really hurts. Inland flash flooding, ocean flooding, droughts, famine, water shortage, melting glaciers, and polar ice caps, hurricanes, mega hurricanes, snow and ice storms, wildfires, tornadoes. This is going to cause massive migration. It's going to cause nation breakdown, law and order issues, healthcare issues, a lot of premature death. This is what's in the foreground. And so shall we wait till we have the next acceleration? In other words, we went from 2000 to 2012. We went in a massive acceleration. It's continuing to get worse, but it didn't have this creep to leap flavor where it had a big jump. Now that acceleration thing is a big deal. So I'm going to talk about that in tipping points, which is very important. Is someone going to keep a track of my time? Thank you, honey. Good girl. Oh, really? Is that all? All right. Let's turn to the next slide. Greenhouse effect. How does this work? We said that the sun is coming in. There's some solar radiation is reflected by the Earth and the atmosphere. Some of the sun will bounce off the atmosphere, go out, back into space. Some goes down into the Earth. Most radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and warms it. Then there's an infrared radiation is emitted by the Earth's surface. Some of it escapes, some of it doesn't. We've told you now about the blanket, okay? So that's kind of a visual of what's going on. And you see where it's showing the Earth's surface and the atmosphere. That's supposedly the stratosphere or the troposphere, right? Okay, let's go on to the next step here. So what's happening is here's a record of parts per million of carbon dioxide in the air. And you can see that from 1960, this looks like a stock market, like NVIDIA. You've got 1960 to 2022 there. And that thing is going right up. So that is 60 years. That's like this 50, 60-year business. This is a 60-year thing. Now, what is recommended as the high by practically every health person is 350. So we're already to 422. And with every time that goes up, and it goes up almost every year, fractionally, you get a further and further greenhouse effect accumulating. It's like a pretty good ratio. But there is an exception. It can be a lot worse. So, okay, Arthur? Here's the baby. There is an organization called the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a phenomenal. This is under the auspices of the United Nations. These are the finest, greatest international group of specialists on climate experts. And then each one of them have a team around the world. And this is what they say about tipping points. Tipping points are critical thresholds in a system that, when exceeded, can lead to a significant change in the state of the system, often with an understanding that the change is irreversible. You know, that's a similar flavor to what I was saying about once it goes up, it doesn't come down, it's permanent. This is irreversible stuff. Now look at these, what are numbered here is 9 items. So these are 9 points that are at risk over time that these will collapse and disappear, go extinct. Or they will go partially and they will just aggravate the environment and make things give a lot of trouble. You get a lot of trouble either way, more trouble if it accelerates. So up there in the upper left, you got the Amazon rainforest is one. Across there is the Arctic sea ice, right? That's the Arctic ice cap. Atlantic circulation, that's a big one. You don't know it. Coral reef, the left, on the right, on the left is boreal forest. That's in the northwest United States and Canada, a massively large forest. Greenland ice sheet, West Arctica ice sheet, and the Wilkes Basin on the East Antarctica. One is on the west. Now, you see how number 2, the Arctic sea ice. See that arrow going down to number 3? And you see that number 6, the Greenland ice sheet? 6 to 3? Okay. So you see how they can be impacted on number 1 on the boreal forest, or it goes all the way down to 8. That number 3 is the Atlantic circulation. That's the ocean. And based on the waves and the movement, the ocean moves, the land doesn't move. The atmosphere moves, the ocean moves. So the motion of that, the heating of the ocean, the movement of the ocean, the slowing or the speeding, it's warmer on top, it's colder on the bottom. You've got the Nino and Nina. Nino is a lot more tough. And the Niñas are shortening, and the Niños are growing longer and more intense. So we don't have time to talk about ocean stuff, as we're sticking on just the atmosphere for right now. Okay, so what I'm trying to say to you is, here's how this tipping point works. The tipping point goes into, a tipping point is somewhere like a teeter-totter. All of a sudden, something very lightweight can tip it all the way down. And it creates an acceleration like that 2000 to 2012 thing I told you about. There's an acceleration with a tipping point that can go into one of two things: runaway or breakdown, or breakdown and runaway. So intermediate on any one of these things, when it gets past the tipping point, it's going to begin a very high acceleration of melting or or dying, that type of thing. The ocean could have a dramatic change. And when that happens, it happens and it impacts the region first. That's what will happen in various sections. It scares me that the ocean has 400 of these dead things. It's like regional destruction. But when it starts and gets to the entire system, that's when you're really in trouble. And it can happen to the entire system. So what happens is, if we don't get climate change under control, and it continues to get hotter and hotter, it could very well accelerate, and you will have massive tipping point stuff. It will make the world, as far as our species go, uninhabitable. We can't live in a temperature past 140. You know, Venus is a carbon-hot planet. Volcanoes or whatever happened there emitted a lot of carbon dioxide. It's 850 degrees solid carbon there. When they sent the rocket ship to inspect it, in a matter of minutes it melted. So there's no searches on the ground there. Okay, let's go to the next thing here. Okay, so a couple of pictures. This is the melting of the glaciers. Arthur? Nice. Fires. I only did that because it's dramatic. People want to see some pretty pictures, so you got it. So what are, I'm going to finish this up, but I do want to talk about some good stuff that's happening. There's more than just solar and wind. There are a lot of different things that are currently under technological development. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years, maybe some of these will not pan out. Sure, they won't. But if one or two works, it will really be helpful. There's the green hydrogen, which emits water, no carbon, excellent. They have a problem storing it. They have a problem shipping it. They're working on trying to work that out. There's nuclear power, and right now Bill Gates is very excited about a thing that he is helped funding, which is a nuclear plant that's much less costly to build, not as massive as a lot of them, much less waste, can actually use some of the nuclear waste to be reused by this system. Very encouraging. There's geothermal. There's marine ocean energy, which uses the waves and the currents of the ocean to create energy. So none of these things are practical right now, but they're working on it. Hopefully science will do this, but you realize this is for us having energy to replace it. It has nothing to do with man's power about stopping the process of carbon excess going up into the atmosphere. And when that gets to a certain point, and if it so destroys our environment and habitat, we could, it's not likely, but at this point it's possible, we could be an extinct species in the 22nd century. And that thought is terrifying and unbearable to me. So That's the reality that we have. Do you know that the hydropower is the electricity sector that it's the largest in the world? You know, dams and this type of thing. Wind energy, solar energy, geothermal, all current alternatives. And solar is the fastest growing, but it's only 1-2% of the entire world stuff at this point. So you can see how, you know, how much work we have to do. Okay, let's not have to stand and look at the fire. Thank you. All right, let's take that off for now. The story on that last one that says 400,000 Hiroshima claim, it's a little bit misleading, but I love the drama of it. But let's put it this way. If you had 100 nuclear, that's 100 times more powerful than this, that there's 420,000 atomic. If you had 100 of those or 1,000 of those going off every day, we'd all be in a panic. We might be, in fact, maybe the Armageddon if something like that happened. Well, they're talking about the amount of actual burning energy that those bombs would put out would be a fraction of what we're doing every day in terms of the carbon energy that's being emitted. The difference is that the nuclear going up is a different type of chemistry. Do you know what I'm saying? All right. So let's talk for a minute something that's very important. What about hope? We talked about hope in this service beautifully. In this case, I just want to say, if you're optimistic, you're wishing the best, there's nothing hopeful about that. Hope is exactly what we stand for. It has to be earned. It is an act of belief that working together in an attitude and action, we can make things better. And that's the difference. So we need to, what we're trying to do, encourage people to take action, get together with a group. There's no way you as an individual are going to feel any effectiveness. And incidentally, you have to have a group because emotionally, you need the support as you can give support emotionally to the people doing the work. This is discouraging. It's frustrating. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So if you want to contact me, I have an email, climatecliffhanger@gmail.com, meaning it's a toss-up, but we're working on it. But yes, you can contact me at that number. Sorry?
I worked at the Sierra Club doing conferences for teachers on global warming. You've got it right out here.
Yeah. All right, suggestions here. Climate Action Handbook, recent publication, absolutely terrific. A visual guide to 100 climate solutions for everyone. Now here's what's beautiful about this. I want you, not what I'm going to tell you to do. You pick out 1 or 2 things to do at home every day that will remind you and give you a sense of consciousness about this, about ecological consciousness. That's the real thing. It's a self-supporter, enhancer. We need to develop this consciousness and not get buried in it, forget about it for a week or 2 weeks. Do anything you want. Pick out something from this book, turn down your energy thing, eat less meat. I don't care what it is, you pick it out. It's just a daily reminder. The other thing is, out of 20,000 or 2,000, we'll say, organizations, you can find one organization that's doing something about something that you care about. What do you have a passion about? Is it parks? Is it pollution in the local area? Is it something to do with state and local officials? Is it going to be political and voting? I don't care what it is. Pick out something that matters to you, that you have a passion about. And that will have carrying power and sustaining power. And if you find out that group isn't, and have this emotional connection, it's a community thing to do. The other thing I want to say is get on the free newsletter with United Nations. They are incredible what they're doing. And The IPCC is a product of the United Nations action. And you can get their stuff. NASA.gov. There's a lot of love for NASA. They got stuff on climate. You can get all that stuff. UNESCO, an incredible organization on weather, community, education, ecology, another UN spin-off type of thing. Climate Reality Project, the organization that I'm involved with, wonderful. Al Gore got 25,000 people he's trained to do this work. And if you're interested in supporting, God bless you, send in a donation to them. You don't have to. You can send in a donation to United Nations. Support them if you can. If you don't want to do the money thing, just get into action. That's even more important. 350.org. For those who are seniors, this is an incredible organization, one of the largest in the country. And see the film, An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power, 2017 film that Al Gore won awards for. It's a second Inconvenient Truth. And one last thing. I want to suggest that you do a letter to your children, to your grandchildren, to if you don't have them, to a youngster who you care about. Write a letter, tell them what you're doing, that you care about them. They will appreciate it to no end. And to that extent, let me say to Robin and Sean, Owen B. and Mason, this is for you. And to Nancy, my partner, for more than 20 years, my muse, my audience, my biggest fan and support, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow. Thank you so much, Joel. You know, it's not a fun topic. It's not entertaining, but it's the number one thing, you know? And I don't know where we're going with this, but I'd like to think my great-grandchildren have a future. Let's think Bashana Haba. It's about people hoping for a better future.
Bashana haba, nesheva mirpeset ve'nispor tziporim nodidot. ילדים בחופשה, ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day dark blue clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world this can be if we share you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there will be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world this can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Arthur, for the slides. David, for the streaming. Melanie, for everything else. And all of you for coming. Join us for our own Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה Hashanah.